Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast. Today we have an amazing guest, Mr. Simon Scott Nelson. Hi, Simon. How are you?
I'm really well. Thank you. Thanks ever so much for having me on. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. And so it's a nice little day over here. You see in the Caribbean. You see, we struggle today. You see, I've done a bit of fishing, and then come back on the beach. Top my tan up this afternoon.
Yeah, it looks lovely. I'm glad I put my background on. Otherwise, you'd think I was just sitting in my living room, wouldn't you? Oh, oh that's right. I forgot.
The grand reveal.
Right.
So, thanks for coming on the show. It's appreciated. I know you've got a lot of stuff on at the moment, and it's good to see you in the flesh, so to speak. I suppose one of the questions I've got for you was, what gets you up in the morning, and what's happening in Simon's world these days?
Well, funny enough, we were just talking about our alarm clocks, weren't we? And getting out first thing in the morning, and I must change mine because it's evil. I'd like something more inspiring to get up. But the thing that gets me up really is that I'm on a mission now. I have to self-motivate myself because, having this mission, being obviously remote working from home, essentially, I'm in charge of what I do. And I've been in places before in my life where that's all too easy, that you could just sort of wake up with no mission, wake up with no plan, and you sort of drift from, you can't mark success in the day, you have no benchmarks, and it's very hard to get any satisfaction out of it because you don't know whether you've won or lost. In fact, when you've got your inner critic, you always lose it. If it's 50-50, your inner critic will always tell you the other way. So look, I've got Wellity now, and I owe it to the brand. The brand is taking off. It normalizes the conversation around mental health, and it's now my job to give it some substance behind the brand, if that makes sense. It's a bit like a Trojan horse. It's entering a lot of different trade bodies now and getting a bit of press that people are, when it breaks through the walls, the Trojan horse will open up. And there's got to be some good stuff in there because it's such an important thing. So that keeps me going. If I'm honest, that keeps me going. And the workload is going up, and we're adding to the team. So it's quite positive, and I'm lucky now. I haven't always been, but I'm really lucky now to mix passion and purpose. And
what time do you actually get up in the morning then? Can you share that?
I'm not an early riser. I would love to be an early riser. We were saying about comparison to people, and you get up and you realise that you think you're up early at 6:30, 7, but someone's already walked to a cliff top and done yoga. And you think, oh crap, I wish, why aren't I doing yoga? Well, I'm just not built like that. I'm really not. I'm a night owl, so I'm the other way.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, if I get up at 6:30, that's good enough for me, or 7. But I'd love to do my PT and my phys in the morning. But it's coffee and probably breakfast, and then just straight to work, and then I'll probably do that about 11 or 12, or in the evening. But yeah, I'm a night owl, so I'll go well into the night as opposed to waking up early. Although I struggle, I wish I'd do it the other way around.
Do you ever do it through the night? Have you done those?
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's the workload was what took me under the first time, and that's what will go on in a minute. Maybe in what I experienced burnout, and it was working all those hours, and it was almost like an addiction. I've never been a gambler. Apart from the fruit machines at uni, but I imagine it's like that. Nothing's quite enough, and you can't put it down, and you keep going, and that's what I was like. Getting a bit obsessed with work, and that took me through the night. So yeah, there are red flags, which is now I try and go to bed before 12 o'clock.
Yeah, the current record for the show is actually 3:30 a.m. Actually, our earliest guest.
What in terms of people who wake up?
Getting up, yeah, and then going for a cycle.
And you know what? Fair play to them. If that's the way their body works and their mind works, I'm all for that. If that's healthy for them, that's just the way they're built. I don't know what it was when I was younger. I used to lie in a lot. I always wish I'd been booted out of bed. When you were 60, 50, 60, 70 and just started going out. But maybe it's that keeps me to the bed. But no, I mean that's early enough for me. I get everything done. I work late into the night. I like to work when my body is naturally wanting to work, as opposed to
the right rhythm kind of thing.
Yeah, that's right. As opposed to telling myself and putting myself under pressure. You've got to get out. You've got to do this, and I do get up early-ish and I work hard, so that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, so I suppose going back a little bit to what you just said, you said there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. So there's the Wellity concept. I know you've got some nice branded T-shirt. For obviously people listening to this on Spotify, they might not be able to see the T-shirt, but
That's right. You have to spell it out.
Can see that. So Wellity is. Can you just explain what Wellity is and you mentioned also mental health as a topic, and how do those two things connect?
Well, do you want me to go back slightly in the story then and tell you how it started?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, what was it? Yeah, I suppose understanding the trigger, I suppose, around what was the epiphany moment or the kind of light bulb moment around that.
Yeah, well, I used to have a couple of estate agencies and small group letting agencies, which we acquired. And I sold those in 2017 because I wanted to do something different. No other reason, just wanted to do something different and see if I could get any transferable skills in my career. So I had a bit of time on my hands, and then my children at the time were 10 and 12, and childhood obesity was in the news, and I've obviously very into well-being and looking after their health and well-being. So I couldn't understand why every report on the news was saying kids are getting fat, kids are getting unhealthy, kids are getting mentally ill, kids are getting trapped away and hiding in isolation. And every report was like it was like a eureka moment. We've just found out that X amount of children are going to be obese by the time they're X, Y, Z. And I couldn't understand why people weren't saying the continual diagnosis of a problem is not finding a solution. Like just saying the problem all the time isn't finding a solution. It's like they wanted a reward just for repeating what somebody else has said. Very much the same light as this.
Simon, think about the news. It's like 99% bad news and then 1%.
I don't turn it on now. I don't turn the news on. You're doomed.
We're doomed. We're doomed.
And so we came up with a name. Well, really, at the time, children were having many crazes. So there were fidget spinners. There were slime. For some reason, they were buying tubs of slime, and everything was done on social media. So I realised that if something was going to be done for children, which Wellity was born for as the badge of a healthy lifestyle, but we were going to do fitness and sports and nutrition education, and everything else on social media. It was going to be started by the children, led by the children, so that it was, I hate the word cool because that just says every so that adults weren't involved, so it was a kids' craze. And I was working so hard on that. There's so much authenticity behind this brand that I couldn't understand. This is how delusional I got. I couldn't understand at times why it wasn't as big as Nike and Under Armour and Reebok. And they've got billions of pounds worth of marketing and thousands of people, and there was me behind a computer. But I was so frustrated that I thought, this is for kids, it's for health. My passion was in there. And so I was working very long hours, and we had a degree of success on the outside with international rugby players doing videos for us, an interview with Gabby Logan. My eldest was Molly, who was working with Jamie Oliver on and the Bite Back 2030 charity, a government organisation to halve childhood obesity by 2030. But all that was on the outside, and everyone was saying, yeah, it's really good, really good. But it was social media led, and it was like a veneer that hid really what was happening underneath, which was staying up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, doing my social media at different time zones so that I could try and get different markets. I was trying to tick every box. And it was very much like I put every light on in the house at the same time, trying to do everything. And of course, at some point, circuit blows. And I experienced a burnout, and my self-esteem went down. But I also went through this bit that is really relevant now during COVID, redundancies, end of furlough, crap weather coming up in winter, not being able to see your family now at Christmas, not being able to go to the pubs. Is that there was an amalgamation. So
it's like a compound effect, isn't it?
There was. Each one of my problems I could have dealt with individually, but not at the time when I was tired, exhausted, self-esteem was through the floor. So the relationship went there. Big house had to be sold. The dogs went. My self-image went through the floor. Financial anxiety went through the roof. So I was 43 at the time, but in my head I was 73. In my head I had fast forwarded. Anxiety was fast forwarding me, so that next week I was going to be 73 and not have anything. I'd be, no money, failure, everything. And that I've got a massive appreciation now for financial anxiety, because it seems to affect and it seems to attack your self-esteem, self-worth, what you are as a person, because you can so easily judge yourself very easy against anyone else just by looking on social media, which, as we know, is all waffle anyway. And so
you mean you thought that the social media, your social media window was your benchmark of success, or?
Well, my social media window at the time was my benchmark of success, because when you start a business on your own, that's all you can really do for marketing. And so you have to be one thing. You have to have this big game face. And this is why now because I've always been in sales, I'm very appreciative of anyone who's in sales has a game face. And the game face in sales has to go like that, because that's the way sales work. You've seen the chart. Oh yeah, we had a good quarter on quarter, we're up. This time last year, we're up.
You can't have a down quarter.
Yeah, no one celebrates. Yeah, brilliant, we're going down. So if it's got to keep going up, and the human psyche goes like this, and our emotions go up and down because we're all human, at some point you're going to be down there when you need to be up there. And Wellity version 1 was up there, apparently, but I was down there. So all this bit in the middle, I had to make up my game face, and it was exhausting to get up and haul yourself up each day to do that, only to think, oh, I'm really living a bit of a lie here, but no, you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going, because, you've got to work 25 hours in a day. Entrepreneurs do all this. You've got to burn the can. And it just took its toll. And after a while, I just thought, you know what? It was like a snow globe that you find at your nana's house at Christmas. My life was just frantically being shaken like this, frantically being shaken. And I just needed to put the snow globe down, walk away. I had everything in there, all my ambitions, everything else, but at the same point, because it was being shaken all the time, it was not constructive. I couldn't see what was in the middle. I couldn't see what was important. We'd go to the beach and I'd be chucking t-shirts on the kids, trying to take photos of them, when all they wanted to do was go in and bodyboard. I was thinking promo.
You were putting the branded merchandise on your children?
Yeah, honestly, when I look back on it, and it's like a naughty word now to the kids at that period. And it was only a brief period, but it just got to that stage. So I had to put the snow globe down, had to walk away for my own well-being. Luckily, because I had people around me, and take a job. And the job was, so appreciative of that at the time, because it was a time I could get up early, get some structure, brush my teeth, do my hair, go into an environment, the physiological benefits of actually seeing people as opposed to remote working.
Yeah.
We were out in a village at the time, and I wasn't seeing a lot of people. I was always a bit of a townie, like the Costas, but there I wasn't even doing that, wasn't seeing anyone, and I became really retracted. So to me, it was like opening the curtains and going out into the big world again. And you think that everyone's talking about you, that you're a failure, that you haven't done it. And actually, do you know what? No one even noticed. No one cares. No one genuinely.
Well, everybody's so busy doing what they're trying to themselves, aren't they? So, but there's that I don't know, complex, or that perception that everybody's looking at what you're doing, but everybody's trying to get on with their own stuff. Trying to work out.
It was all up here. It was all up here, because my inner critic had taken over. Literally, my inner critic had got in, nested, laid eggs, grown a family, and it was just comfortable in my head. And it would have been. I can see what happens to people. I can see the demise of people's mental health if they're not nudged out of that, because it will just take over. And so I got the job, and I built myself, got my confidence back, and I realised that Wellity, when I'm better, I've got a very good appreciation, a healthy appreciation now for mental health, but I couldn't understand why everyone's not talking about it. Like, we're not talking about sprained ankle or a burnt hand.
It's like the elephant in the room, basically.
I don't understand. And now I've woken up. There is a compulsion, an absolute compulsion, to normalise the conversation around mental health. I don't like the term mental, because that used to be a derogatory term when I was at school. In the playground, you'd be called mental. And now we're asking, people to put their hand up publicly and tell everyone the very insult in the diagnosis of what they're meant to be admitting to. And so,
what's another word for it that's better than? Is it mind health or soul health?
It could be. I think it's just a general conversation. It's not just one thing. It's like PTSD, mental health, anxiety, depression. Just open the conversation and tell people how you feel. Because when you start opening that conversation, everyone else has had it, because you're human. And actually, the word strong, a strong leader or strong anyone else, is really changing its definition now. Strong means you're strong enough to be open and vulnerable and honest and frank and relevant. Strong is not now, as we see, we're all working remotely. You know, at the start of lockdown, you'd still see people coming onto Zooms in shirt and tie, and you'd wonder,
Really?
but do you know what I mean? You'd wonder what are you doing? Let's all be normal, and that is what I'm trying to instill. We've all got it. So whether it's, I see these things now with form score, where you rate yourself out of 10, which is great, or mental fitness, which I see somewhere else. As long as we're talking about it, as long as we've got high profile people coming out and talking, and senior leaders discussing it, then I think we're halfway there. But we don't have to change the pitch and whisper when we talk about mental health. You just talk about it, just like you got tennis elbow. And that's what's led me to Wellity version 2, which is normalizing the conversation around mental health in a bid to make everyone the best versions of themselves and to give people a bit of a way out. Well-being has always been seen as selfish. You can't go for a pamper, you can't get your hair done. How dare you go and get a massage, heaven forbid. But you go to other countries and you see that well-being, whereas a football team or a rugby team has life coaches, physical coaches, medics, everything else, we're exactly the same. Our bodies are like cars, and they cannot run without MOTs. And if you put the wrong fuel in all the time and driving them for long miles without rest, they'll just conk out. And it's letting people know that well-being isn't selfish. You do have to put yourself first at some point.
It's interesting. So it sounds like thanks for explaining that. I mean, it sounds like your personal experience then actually gave you that kind of momentum, I suppose, around addressing it properly. And it's obviously, I mean, I think to your point, I mean, without sharing any of my stories, I mean, I think, everybody can relate to the topic, and they've all got their own stories of what they've been through. But then I suppose it's this thing about what do people feel comfortable about sharing, and how vulnerable do they want to be in a public forum, or even in a private forum. I suppose that's the thing, is it's building that trust and building that dialogue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, until you realise that everyone else has got it as well. So it takes one person to go first. It really does take one person to go first. I'm working with a great team now as well. I've been asked to chair the Institute Sales and Management Mental Health and Wellbeing Thought Leadership Group, and that is some of the biggest companies in the country. And on that group, we've got some of the greatest leaders, not just from corporate world, but also from well-being as well. And we look to redefine how we discuss it. And I've also interviewed many people for the real life stories, the Wellity real life stories, and they try and quantify, once they've lost everything, what are the values, what are we actually all searching for? And these are people they've either suffered grief, attempted murder, paralysis, grooming as a child, childhood traumas, homelessness, breakdown, everything else. And you might think, well, why would I watch all that on a Sunday afternoon? Well, the reason behind Wellity is that rather like Couch to 5K, I don't know if you're aware of Couch to 5K, Sporting don't try and tell people to run faster and what trainers to get. They literally try and cajole people off the sofa by using techniques of groups coming together and community and self-diagnosis and that sort of thing, just to get your energy up. Well, Wellity does exactly the same with well-being. If people are down, what I'm interested in when talking to these people who have had real life stories and are really keen, like me, to tell everyone about it, is the reason we fear so much when we're going down is because we don't know where the bottom is. We're panicking. I don't know if I am going to be broke. I don't know if I am going to lose everything. Panic. Now, at some point, you need a third-party verification to come in and go, shh, come on, chill out, come on. Ooh, this is what happened. This is what happens to everyone else. They've been there, and they've been worse. Don't worry. Not to offer advice, but to just say, look, go and nudge you off. Go and have a look at these. See what they did. Okay, fine. They watch those, and the idea of Wellity is that you then find the solution within the platform as well. So you may need counselling. You may want to go and get a life coach. You may just want to do more fitness at home. Oh, I've got any weights. Well, we'll speak to our fitness person because they can show you how to do. And all it does is it just nudges people. So what I'm really interested in is, at what point does it go like that? Because well-being for me, and I've asked loads of people what their definition of well-being, and I'd be interested to hear what yours is. Mine is the direction of which you're traveling, because if you're going down, that's not well-being for me, because you're panicking about where the bottom is. If for some reason you've done that, I don't know, the sun's come out, you've won £2 on a scratch card, anything that can change your like, and you start going up, then that's well-being. It doesn't matter whether you're having 2 bottles of wine a night here, but you're just having 1 bottle of wine a night there, which is still not healthy, but it's far better than the 2 bottles of wine you were having before.
1 bottle of wine and 1 bottle of vodka on the way up. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's just that direction. So look, I'll ask you a question then. I know you're used to asking the questions, but I can't resist it.
That's not allowed that, Simon. That's not allowed.
What's your definition of well-being?
Well, no, I think. Well, my definition of well-being would be, I think it's small incremental steps, and it's also thinking about all the elements of it. So it's thinking about, what you do. We talked before about Aubrey Marcus, like own the day. Yeah. So what do you do? How do you make the best day possible, and then do it again, and just continually improve what you're doing, and not get obsessed about trying to be perfect. And trying to think it, holistically, just, having, physical and mental and meditation and affirmations and goal set. It's like to my mates, all the things together help you get in a better place. And, I think don't stop beating yourself up about things and trying to make out that you're going to be perfect in every area, because you never will be.
No one is perfect.
So, but I think it's that incremental, it's just, you could say, is it the tortoise or the hare? But it's, it's a bit like, the slow movement towards improving yourself and incrementally improving it, and then celebrating, when you get some wins, and, you can make 50 phone calls, if you're in a sales role, and you get two breakthrough calls, and that can make your day. Yeah. But, it's just, I think it's just not giving up as well. It's just keeping on it. Yeah. So,
that's soundbite that. Thank you.
That's my little anecdote.
But it's different with everyone, isn't it? Because you see it through your eyes.
Yeah.
And it does require you to be, I hate the word, but selfish on your own well-being, because at some point you do need to lock the doors and look after yourself. Or open them, in my case, so I can actually go out and see people.
Yeah, I mean, people have different ways to do it, but I think my personal things about doing at least 100 press-ups a day, and doing my stretching exercise and stuff like that. It's losing weight and getting in shape. Is important. And I think that's as you mentioned, it's important to what you do as well, because once you've got your body in straight, then you can get your mind in straight as well and move forward.
Yeah, fitness is an antidepressant. And it's funny enough, I read somebody said something so succinct the other day, which is, if it's an antidepressant, why do you wait till the end of the day to take it? And that got me thinking, maybe I should get up there an hour early, take your antidepressant in the morning and get on with it, because it doesn't make you too fatigued. But the other thing is positive mindset, because if you're doing 100 press-ups a day and everything else, which is absolutely amazing, if you don't want to do that one day, if something jogs you out, the other thing is to have the slight recovery thing of, oh, don't worry, Andrew, it's not a problem. The nice tone of voice in your head, don't worry, take a day off, chill out, we'll eat some good food tonight, and we'll go again tomorrow and do 150. You'll
do 200 tomorrow.
Yeah, but that, and it's that tone of voice that with me was loud and aggressive and would have said, well, you're crap, you can't even do 100 press-ups in one day. When you were younger, you used to do so many. You do, and it's that tone of voice. If people are aware of, if it's angry, if it's loud, if it's in capital letters, if it's shouting, that needs to be addressed before you can do absolutely anything, because it'll undermine anything you do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so thanks for sharing that story. I mean, I think obviously, being in the estate agency business is quite, high pressure sales, high risk, high reward. And it sounds like you've been through some of your peaks and valleys, and got to a really good place now, or you're on the way back up, as you could say. Oh,
I'm on the right trajectory. Yeah. Yeah, estate agency for me was good fun. It was sales. I started it in the recession. So I started it in 2009. My thinking was that if no one is selling houses at all, then we're all level. This is the only time we're all going to be level. And when we come out to the blocks, if we've done enough PR and marketing, we'll be ahead of them. We weren't, because they were huge companies. And then their budgets kicked in again. But we were up there. And it was great. And, you know, the only reason I sold it was because I knew I wasn't waking up, bouncing out of bed each day, going into doing it. For me, it was slightly rinse and repeat. My learning curve, I'd sort of reached the top of the learning curve, and you know, I wanted more than one thing written on my headstone, which was Simon is an estate agent. Simon was, you know, I wanted something broadened. And like everyone, when they think of a career change, you think, oh, I can't change because I've invested all this time into. You've invested time in learning from your experiences, and those experiences can be easily translated onto selling another product.
How you found the transition from, I mean, obviously, because you're working in a kind of a franchise setup to being the founder of your own business then. Have you found that a big transition? Have you found that a bit of a gap or a bit of a stretch, or has it been quite a natural progression?
It's a natural progression. Starting the estate agency, although we had the name above the door with the franchise, we did it all our own. We did it all by ourselves anyway. You know, we had the backing of the brand, but it was a London franchise, and we're down in Devon. So it was a big reach. They're a great company, but it was basically like a startup anyway. The thing that was different with that is I had a business partner, and you know, I remember moving offices at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and just stuff like that, and being able to go out and have a drink, share our wins, commiserate in our losses, pick up the phone. The biggest difference about being absolutely alone is that you don't have any of that other physiological stuff. And you know, I would, with wanting a business partner, with someone wanting someone there, is just to have to take the lid off the kettle every so often, and to realize you're both going on this journey together. And that's what I miss more than anything.
But in Wellity, are you the sole founder then, or have you built like a team with you? Or
I'm the sole founder. We've got a team. We're looking to expand more in terms of ambassadors. Simon Weston CB has come on as our main ambassador. We've got all of our brilliant real life speakers. We've now got a group through the ISM group, which I will lean on for their experience and expertise, because they're top of their game. So I can feel it's growing, but essentially everything lies with me. So it's nice I'm talking a lot more on social media about what's going on, because I am not, I don't know, you see red flags, don't you? I don't know if you've ever been there, but you see the red flags, which is, okay, I haven't done any exercise for a day or two, I haven't just picked up the phone, I haven't actually seen anyone for a bit other than the kids. So I'm just trying to talk a lot more. And this time, collaboration is key. Wellbeing is big enough for, you know, people have contacted me saying, I'm thinking of doing something similar. I hope you don't think I'm competing. I say, if you're competing, that's brilliant. For a start, that's more people trying to help people out in the wellbeing market. And B, we're on a Zoom next week because we want to see if we can collaborate, because let's get this done now. You know, we got what, 30 years left on the planet, 30, 40 summer holidays, as I say. Yeah, there's too much time you can't compete. Let's just all delve in together and do it, and that way we'll have more strength in numbers.
I mean, so in terms of, I mean, so I think what you've done is you've done a really good introduction on your, I suppose, your personal growth story and a bit about your business growth story. I mean, I suppose one of the things I was on your business growth story is, if you think about, you know, we're in 2020 now, the crazy year that we've been in 2020. What do you see as being, you know, what's your have you got a 10-year plan? What does 2030 look like for Wellity? How many people would you like to impact with the Wellity mission? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I have. When you look at the fitness clothing market, you've got Gymshark. When you look at the sporting market, you've got Nike and all the others. You know what they've done? They're beasts. They've just got in at the right time, capitalized on, and I don't mean financially necessarily, because you know, when you get into business, it's more about your purpose and your passion. But when I think of well-being, I want everyone to think about Wellity. And my 10-year plan is very much to expand through corporate networks, through HR, through software, but also to just literally, before any growth, stick to our authenticity, because you'll see through anyone in this day and age. Everyone's seeing through everyone. It has to be authentic. And I would rather not earn any money, but everyone know about Wellity and where it, or there's some social impact and the language is being changed. That's, if there are any benefits off the back of that, that will come, but it has to be authentically led first. So yeah, it's, you know, I look at what Gymshark have done in the last 6 years, and I look at Ben Francis and I think, okay, well, he took it to a point where he was the first one to get all the people who were influencers to wear it, and he was very bold in what he did.
All the Instagram influencers,
yeah, he looked like the brand. He carried the brand. He was the brand, and then he got to a point where I think he realised his own strengths and brought other people around him to help him, and that's when it really started flying. And I think that honesty and authenticity is brilliant, and it allowed him to not go under with the pressure, but stay above it and market his brand. So all I want to do in the next 10 years would be collaborate with other people, with their brands, with everyone, not specific on whose name goes above the door, but just to grow the network.
Like create a movement, and it's create an empire.
You have to, well, it's not so much the empire, it's the movement. It's like seatbelt changes got changed. There was a bit of legislation came in, smoking in pubs changed, and now we see all, you know, the youngsters coming up and they're not drinking so much perhaps as we did in the day. And they're not buying the Benson hedges. They're not smoking behind Gateway and Safeways. I don't even know Gateway and Safeways exist. But do you know what? I want there to be a new currency as well. Rather than getting 30 grand on your basic extra to work around a mirror and think, yes, I've got a new LinkedIn title, I'm going to put a mirror on there. That's great, although I won't see my kids for another day a week. I want there to be a new currency, which is that balance where, all right, you're getting paid in money and you're getting paid in Wellity, right? So Wellity is how much support mechanism do you have, because we're flogging you with this like a racehorse. We're flogging you, but at some point we've got to attend to your wounds, change your hooves, feed you some nice stuff, and that's what Wellity is. It's the support mechanism. So are you getting allowance to go and get your life coach? Are you getting an allowance in flexi days? Are you getting vouchers to go and spend on some you time? That would be a lovely thing if we can just make it so that it's not just money as a reward, and also this old Brian Clough way of sort of flogging people. Yeah, you were up till 3 o'clock while you're networking. That's fantastic. Were you pissed? Yeah, I was smashed. And you know what? I got up at 6 o'clock for breakfast. Yeah, get on. Brilliant.
I had a fry up at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that's great. And then they're absolutely knackered for the rest of the week. I'd like to just try and, if you want to stay up and network with everyone and get brilliant, but there are another load of people who maybe want to go and speak to their family and go to bed early on these big 3-day LA trips. They're there to work and they're there to be healthy, and then but they might equally get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and want to do yoga. So it's not a one cap fits all to your employees. It's whatever they want. So listening and engaging with people.
So I suppose talking about that topic then, I suppose, absenteeism and, what you've noticed with, corporates and people who've got obviously these very demanding jobs, that, what have you seen well, I suppose, what are the symptoms, for people that are listening on this podcast episode today, what are the kind of things that if they see these types of behavior or they see these types of, manifestation, that they need to get some help? What would you say from your?
It's easily done because you've got to measure what success is, and success is, maybe 10 people around you in your leadership group thinking that you're terrific and giving you money. That's essentially what senior leadership is, isn't it? It's the people managing above you, and do I appeal to those 3 or 4 people, and do I appeal to 3 or 4 people around me there? But just to keep that wider vision that you've got a family as well, and you've got people who, even if you don't think so, they will love you. So if you're driving around all those hours, not so much now, but working all those hours, what are your rewards? Is it just money and appealing to those 6 or 7 people, or are you doing something wider for your own fulfillment? I've seen it firsthand with senior leaders. I've seen it firsthand where that's all they judge success on, and sometimes under their noses their kids are growing up, and before you know it they're 14, 15, 16 and don't want those cuddles, don't want those little holidays, they want to go off with their mates, and you've got one shot and you've missed it. And there was someone who was writing a book in a cancer ward once at the end with people's end of life, and it was such an interesting thing because she was getting, finding out what people are thinking at the end of their life. And I don't think there was one person there who said, my only regret is I didn't send more emails. So it's asking yourself that if I'm traveling around and it's in the rain and I've got up early and I'm doing this, if you're doing it and you're passionate about it, it's lovely and you're making a difference, great. If you're not, if there's any bit in you that says, oh, just think, if I do drive into that middle lane, if I do drive into the barrier on the middle lane, tired and exhausted and burnt out, who is going to care about me? You know, I know the corporate world can be very supportive, but the person underneath you will want your job, and the person above you will just have to replace you. That's it. Your wider environment is going to miss you far more.
That's back to that classic quote by Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, isn't it? About, you know, just think about, you know, if you don't look after yourself, then, you know, your job will be online as you know, like, you know, minutes after your obituary. Yeah. It's literally, that's the quote on a quote I've seen. So it's like, you know, by The Rock, you know, Dwayne Johnson.
I wish I had more in common with The Rock than just believing the same quote.
Well, no, but I mean,
yeah.
It is that thing about, you know, some organisations, you know, well, I suppose that's the question. I suppose that's about, you know, some organisations are not embracing it. Some organisations are starting to embrace it because they're seeing it's. I suppose I was just going to say was, you obviously saw with some of the conversation you've had with individuals and companies that this is a rising problem and it needs to be addressed. Yeah. And I suppose the question for me then is, in the context of well-being, you asked me what my definition of well-being was. What are the elements of well-being, you know, that you think are important?
I think it's just seeing people as human and realizing that there's sort of 5 pillars. We've got 5 pillars. I can't remember what they are, but it's sport and fitness, mental health and mindfulness, nutrition, financial anxiety, and body and beauty. And it's just knowing that there's more to a person. If you're only going to judge you on figures, that's a terror. If someone's only as good as just figures, they can perform better if you just broaden the conversation, but it requires someone to do it. And it does start top down in the culture. And I think there's a danger. A little information is dangerous sometimes. And if you start to tinker with it and tickle well-being, and you put things in place, but it's just to tick the boxes.
Yes, yeah.
It's quite dangerous because people will rely on that in their hour of need. And it is changing, but there is still the old guard who, let's face it, you go to a shareholders meeting, you've been a part of some very big companies and led them. Now, if someone comes in on a Monday morning and you're all sitting around and someone goes, right, here's our well-being policy, slams it on the table, go, have some of that. It doesn't quite have as much gravitas as someone coming in and saying we've doubled our quota since last year. So it's the language around the relevance that a well-being policy has. Even well-being policy sounds a bit wishy-washy. It may need to come down in corporate, we'll have different language for different people. And in that sense, you do talk about putting a price on absenteeism, on presenteeism, on people working harder if they're giving a bit more scope. And I think, you know, the CFO is sometimes, you know, can be quite sticky getting that past there, because it does take a while to relate a benefit to what you're doing.
What's the payback? What's the IRR on it? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it.
The IRR, I put in this box. The IRR is actually still having workforce left. Yeah.
Well, and also onboarding. I mean, you look at some of these the companies that are doing it so well. You look at Brewdog, billion pound company.
Brewdog, yeah.
And just their ethos, and everyone wants to work for them because of what they're doing and the messaging they're sending out. And I think when you look at onboarding now, it is adding that extra currency. It's not just I'll pay you with money, because I just think the world's changing, and so it should. So if they can offer this well-being,
you know what used to be called kind of, I suppose it's still called it, but kind of the employer brand promise. Yeah. What is the people plan? What is the people promise of the, you know, the life cycle of the relationship? Yeah.
It's a very thin relationship. If the only relationship you've got with your company is your figures, and if you don't hit them, you're off. And if you do hit them, we'll give you more. We'll encourage you to. And a lot of companies don't say, I want you to work till 2 a.m, but they will say, well, this person's doing really well. Look at their car. Look how much we've just promoted them. There's a lot of subliminal selling in it. And I'm not saying don't hit your targets. What I'm saying is don't fall out of love with sales. Don't fall out of love with sales. Sales is amazing, but fall in love with your own well-being as well. And if you can marry the two up, you'll be 100% better.
Interesting. So what you're saying is there's these 5 elements, and what you're saying is having a balance across those 5 elements and building that into how you exist on a daily, weekly basis, a monthly basis is very important, or increasingly important for individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you need them, right? You need them as a human. So we want a positive change. We want to make a positive change. For me, I'll relate to them now. So financial well-being is something that can catapult you into the future, ruin your self-esteem. You're not as good as the bloke you were at school with or the lady that you were at school with. Haven't they done so much better? You're judging it on a snapshot. You don't know whether they're in redundancy or, you know, they've completely not spoken to their family for 20 years while building up their career. You don't know what's going on, but you just take it as, oh, they've got those letters after their name, you know, APAC or CEO, whatever it is. So financial well-being is one. Fitness and sport, you've just alluded to, which is your press-ups, which is getting out. It's an antidepressant. It's a non-negotiable in no matter how small an element you do it, whether it's just walking to the shops and then extending your walk. So financial well-being, fitness and sport, mental health and mindfulness. You can look in the mirror one day and think you're going to be the next CEO or tennis champion. You look yourself in the next day and nothing's changed at all, but you could be an absolute failure. Everyone's laughing at you, and who am I to even think I should be going for that promotion? So that's, you know, that's a day. That's just a physiological thing, which is why mental health and mindfulness with your life coaches, with making sure that you're not working remotely, looking out for those red signs. Personal development, which is mentors, executive coaches and all that sort of thing, because you have to value your own personal development. A lot of people get comfortable in feeling horrible and rubbish because at least I can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. I'll still feel pretty crap and rubbish. But if I go outside of my comfort zone and, heaven forbid, give myself permission to be happy and learn, I don't know what's going to happen. So no, I'll retract back into it. And so personal development, and then health and nutrition, obviously what goes in will affect what comes out.
Interesting. I mean, so what you're saying from a corporate point of view, I mean, are you saying it should be a CEO-led initiative then, well-being? And are you seeing CEOs embracing this as a you know, you did the great analogy of the, you know, bashing down the well-being report versus bashing down the sales quarterly report, and your perception on the different reaction. Are you seeing a change, or are you seeing there's more work to do at that kind of C level to get them to understand the cause and effect of having a proper well-being strategy?
Yeah, it is changing and it is getting better. But you imagine that you spent 40 years getting to that title. You've got 40 years of that perceived old school, I've done it this way, been telling everyone else. The culture is built in the organization. It's very hard to then say, actually, I have to take the edge off. I do a bit of baking at the weekend, and I like to, I do have a, whatever, I break down or something else, because you're in fear of bringing down that whole empire that you've built up in terms of your own personal image and branding. So it's harder at the top because they have more to lose in inverted brackets. It's only when they leave, or whether they get fired, or whether they change something, or when they have a epitome moment, that they suddenly realize, God, there was so much more. And so it does start at the top, but it doesn't have to be the CEO. Don't put yourself under all that pressure. And you know what? People don't have to do a lot. I think what lockdown has done is allowed people to see each other in their houses, heaven forbid, without a shirt and tie, and they're not in a Regis office talking about this perception, this game face that you put on for that 2-hour meeting before you then, go off to whatever you do and actually be normal again. It has leveled everyone. And I don't think, you don't have to do a lot. You just have to be normal.
And thanks for sharing that. It's interesting. I mean, do you see a difference between female leaders and male leaders?
No, and I've talked to a lot of female leaders about this, because there was a perceived perception that they have to be something they're not to go up the ladder. But I think they're finding their own lane now as well. It's terrific to see. I mean, how many boardrooms now are just literally 10 guys in suits? There are still industries which are very predominantly male-led. Yeah. And I think I think it does need far more diversification. Yeah. So no, I think it's terrific. I think women are making their own way, and it's great, and it's really good to see. And as long as they can be honest as well, whether it's family-led or personal-led. But I do see that landscape changing, and I think it's terrific.
Hmm. So I suppose, I mean, we talked quite a bit about the G and the G and T. I mean, on the T side, the technology side, I appreciate, your background. So in terms of, obviously technology is here. It's you could say it's here to stay. I mean, what's your relationship with technology? What do you obviously do develop software. You kind of like, I suppose you're slightly, how do you leverage technology in your life? Is it something that it's tech for good? Is it something that you see as something that's dangerous, or not tech?
Good question.
What's your relationship with technology, I suppose?
Well, Wellity is building a well-tech platform in the background. So
Okay.
that to me is accessibility. It also is, raising finance and making something bigger and better and far more accessible into various different um, homes or HR departments or corporates. So yeah, that's being worked on behind the scenes. For full disclosure, myself and technology, it drives me mad when I see the kids on it all the time. And we went out to a holiday recently where we banned the phones. We had the best week that we'd had ever. Just, it took a bit of getting used to that scratchy, itchy feeling when you think. But you've got to realize that there are companies that put billions into making these things like fruit machines, with the noises they make and the signs and the notifications and let it vibrate. They can easily take over a kid's childhood, and as long as it's managed. Me personally, I took all the apps off my phone about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it's just amazing how the difference it makes. Yet I have to keep an eye on it because I use it for marketing, or Wellity uses it for marketing a lot. So it's like a double-edged sword, and I think it's just that you have to be managed. I did an interview recently when someone has a digital sunset before they go to bed. Turning everything off, just an awareness that there's blue light before you go to bed and your well-being, and not letting it be the first thing you reach for in the morning by having an alarm clock as opposed to your phone. So you're not literally, like I used to be doing, reaching with one hand, pressing snooze invariably. No, I mean pressing off on the alarm clock. But then your first thing you see is someone doing their Pilates and they're better than you already, or someone's been up and they're doing these posts, and you start this procedure. And you're like, before you know it, you're half an hour in.
Oh, you mean because some people jump straight on social media when they wake up, you mean?
Of course they do. I've known people who wake up in the night to check their emails, or have woken up in the night to check their emails, and that isn't healthy. So whilst it's there and accessible and can be a great purveyor of information to people and transport it, there needs to be, I mean, don't put yourself under pressure, but there should be some sort of awareness of the detrimental effect. Just seeing my 2 kids on holiday, and the fun we had walking and boarding and everything else instead of sitting there on TikTok, has said to me that there is more to life. So just that wider vision.
Oh, you've been dancing on TikTok with your kids, have you?
I've done the odd one or two, yeah, just to lend my hand. I said to them jokingly, I'm going to download it the other day, and they ran out of the room. If you go on it, because they know I can already stalk their Instagram stories. But tech for good. When you look at the NHS, when you look at everything we've been going through, and technology it can be amazing in that. If we just get away from social media and put it into the AI or look at the growth of UiPath and what they're doing recently, and how technology is firing up through the social services, etc., to make everyone more accessible and make things quicker, then yeah, absolutely, massive fan, fantastic. And there are certain organizations that have capitalized on COVID. We're on probably Zoom at the moment, and some like that. So yeah, when it connects, when it helps, when it's technology for good, brilliant. When it's social media, fantastic, but just manage it.
Well, why did you mention UiPath, by the way? Is there a link to that somewhere?
I've got a friend, Chris Duddridge, who's there, and
Duddridge,
yeah, who's doing very well. He's a lovely guy and loves his well-being as well. So I stay connected and watch their stuff, and I see they were listed as well.
They're not a unicorn; they're a decacorn now. You see. So.
Yeah, it's great. And he's a very humble guy as well, and realizes it's a big team effort and is into his well-being. So yeah, full credit to Chris.
Interesting. Yeah, no, so, I mean, I think it's very interesting that you've deleted all your apps off your phone, and I think one of the things I would say is that the film you need to watch, if you've not watched it already, is this called The Social Dilemma on Netflix. I know you've heard about it.
I haven't watched it, no.
But I would recommend you watch it, because there's actually a scene in that film where they're all sat at the table having dinner, and the mother says, I'm sick of people sat there with their mobile phones. So she actually has a box that she puts all the mobile phones in, and she puts it on a timer. You can only get it in an hour, from an hour or hour and a half from that particular time. And then literally after about 5 minutes, they're all getting a bit, the children are getting a bit fidgety and getting a bit nervous.
It's scratchy.
So they get a bit scratchy. So they actually, the youngest girl goes over into the kitchen, and I won't spoil it for anybody who's not seen it, but there's something that happens which is very, very amazing. So it just shows how, to your point, that it definitely has had an impact on people's daily lives.
Well, you're as good as the people around you, aren't you? So if people are doing really well, and really positive, you'll be positive. If people are bringing you down, you're in an abusive relationship, you're getting, your boss is telling you you're rubbish and everything else. So some people put themselves in various different social groups by nature of the social media that they're in. And when I look at the kids, it's not just being picked on, it could be just being excluded from a group, a WhatsApp group, or not being asked to join a Facebook group or whatever it is. So it's just their language. I think kids understand it more than us. They don't. We're the only generation that have really seen before tech and after before social media.
They were born into it. Yeah, no, I understand.
They're born into it. So, am I just that parent that goes, oh no, my children's going out to rock and roll concerts of the olden days, and actually I'm that parent now talking like that about their social media, and they're actually fine with it. But it's just a shame to see that if they get too engrossed in it and it affects their self-esteem.
I mean, I suppose one of the things I wanted to also just in terms of getting some really good insights from you is because obviously this, stuff you're doing with Wellity, I think is fantastic. It's a really worthwhile mission. And I suppose in terms of advice to people that are listening to this kind of episode, and what would be your kind of, your takeaways, your pearls of wisdom that you'd like to share with people? Because I think it's important that this, the stuff that you're working on is more widely known, which is why I wanted to get you on the show. What would you say? What would you say in that context?
I think in terms of well-being.
Well, yeah, I mean, just really about the things you've touched on during the episode today is about some of the points that people need to think about, and obviously you're now building your superpowers in that kind of area. What are the kind of things that you think you would like to share with people who are on their journey, and what would you like to share about that?
You mentioned superpowers. You do generally feel like you've got a superpower when you've come out of an experience, because only when you've been to the bottom of the ocean can you come up and tell everyone what's down there. And if I can tell everyone what's down there without them having to go to those depths, that's a tick for me. So it does give you superpowers. I think there's two things. The two bits that nudged me out of it was the snow globe, when I've just thought, this is too much. It's all being shaken. I've just needed to put it down. And actually, if you trust, look after your today and trust that tomorrow will look after you. Just trust life, don't jump to worst case scenarios or anything. I dare you, if you're really down, trust that if you do nothing for the next 2 or 3 days, actually there'll be no impending doom. And then you've proved it wrong. And the other thing was, my sister-in-law said, you've got loads of sand in your hand, right? This is a bit deep. And it's got all your aspirations in your family, your kids, everything else, your ambitions, and you want to do really well. When you're really low and you're really angry and you're tight, you're really squeezing at it because you want to keep it all in there so frantically. And what happens when you squeeze this sand is that it all starts pouring out down the side. The only way to keep it all in there is just to relax your hand. And take a 10 count. Don't get up on 2 and 3. Take a 10 count, take your 10, and then stand up and do it. And just realize that this impending doom is sometimes built up by you. I had the 25 minutes that changed my life, which was, I was so bored with my inner critic, the voice that it is teaching you. So another takeaway would be, talk to yourself like you would a 5-year-old child. And if you're talking to yourself like really angrily in capital letters and noisy, when you try and do something good, like make your bed in the morning and get those early wins, if you're telling yourself, well, that's still rubbish, you can't do that, would you say that to a 5-year-old child? No, you'd say, well done, darling, come in, let's have some breakfast, let's work. And listen to the tone in your voice and make it nice, even if it's not, and it will change the way that you think about yourself. But the 25 minutes that changed my life was, I was at Dorney Reach in Windsor, and I needed something.
Oh, Dorney Reach,
yeah, love it. And I needed something to change. And I turned up there for a run. I started running, and the sun was shining, which is a bonus. So I had the sun shining. I went in, and there was a half marathon already running around. I thought, I'm not going to be able to run there. Anyway, the bloke at the gate said, "Are you here for the run?" And I thought, well, I am here for the run, but just not that run. So I sort of tried my luck, and I said yes. So he said, right, free parking down the bottom. So that was two ticks. I thought, oh, this is going well. So I went into my free parking, got there, started running, a bit conscious that I didn't have a number across my.
Well, you entered a race without actually having an entry.
Well, yeah, just I really wanted to run around, but I committed to doing a decent run that day, and I thought I'd do 10K. And as I started running, my mind started going, well, you're not going to do much. You're feeling heavy, you're feeling lumpy. And I thought, okay. And it got louder and louder. And I got to 10K and I thought, do you know what? I'm fed up. I've had enough, because it's going to end either badly or I'm going to beat you. And I just thought, I am going to run today for as long as I can until I collapse, to prove to my mind that that's wrong and I can run. So I did 10K, 15K, ignoring it, just kept my legs going. I did, because they're 5K loops. I did 20K. I had the music in my ear, which is all this. For some reason, the music ticked again. The playlist came on, which was like all the old school stuff, but also the motivational bits of like the typical, everyone else is sleeping, you're winning, you're going to do this. It's all in the mind. And that came on, and my eyes were open. And I had the euphoric runners high. I did 25K, and I thought, yeah, all right, that is a bit tough now. I'm starting to running quite hard. But do you know what? By that time, my mind had stopped, because it told me I could do 10, 15 at best, and I'd conquered it. And I thought, I'm going to bully you now. And I got to the end, and I did another 5, not particularly fast or quickly, but the sun was shining. I was actually almost in tears. I was euphoric running down. I just thought, I'm going to run until I can't run anymore. And I crossed the line at 30K. And it's amazing what happens when you do something like that, because when you start doing something for yourself, opportunity comes in. And I didn't have anyone to take a picture of me. I wanted to symbolize that I'd beaten my mind that day. Because once you've beaten it, once you realize the bully is a bully, and you stand up to it and it goes, every time it tells you you can't do something again, you know you can. So you just say you were wrong. And there were these 2 lovely women, and they said, what have you done? And I said, well, look, I've just done this. I've done 30K. I needed to prove to myself that, they had anxiety. Once I started the conversation, they had. Anyway, I've got this fantastic photo of me standing on the jetty, where obviously they all launched the Olympics. And I've got this moment in my mind where I beat it. And you've got an inner critic. Choose something one day when you've had enough of this voice, and do something. And in that case, I ran until my legs couldn't move, and it beat what my mind thought I could do.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. 30K.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone on to since do more, but I just broke the barrier with that. I never ever thought I could. But it was a case of not listening to my mind and just queuing until literally your legs can't move. And it's amazing the battle between
stop listening to your mind talk. Stop listening to your mind talk.
It goes into fight or flight. It kept telling me you've got 3.5 hour drive after this. You'll need your legs to do it. And there was just so many reasons not to do it. And I think that will kick in, whether people fear about going for that next promotion. Just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You learn. You literally, that's the worst that can happen, is you learn from the experience. And if you get it, but sets a task. This is why I want to do this thing at 45. 45 and above is the age where is the highest rate of male suicide. I'm 45 now, and I want to do a year, which is why I'm doing this, hopefully this Muay Thai challenge, which is led by Grandmaster Sken, the best fighter in the world, is to learn a new thing. I've always wanted to have a fight in the ring for some reason. My older
you're going to do a bout? Okay.
Well, I want to. If I say it enough, I'm then committed.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah.
My elder brother's been in the ring, my younger brother has. I've always wanted to do it. So I thought, well, if I want to do a campaign from 45 and start a movement for men and anyone else, because COVID's been such a crap year, 2020 has been such an awful year for many, is set one thing that you challenge that your inner critic tells you you can't do. Me, fight in a ring, 45, Muay Thai,
like
clearly.
A BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Exactly. Well, set one for next year, right? And do it. And then say to everyone you're going to do it. And then once you've committed to it, come onto the Wellity GoFundMe page, which will be for mental health which will be for suicide prevention. And everyone raise loads just by doing one thing that challenges you. Because what's the worst that can happen? You do it, or you get halfway, or you do something else and you raise money for that. But I think inherent in people's mindset is, I'm too old, I can't do it, I'm 45, I've lost my direction, I'm too old to train to do something new, and I've not been successful at what I haven't. And I just think there needs to be a new focus. So I'd love to start that campaign to highlight, this period where male suicide is at its peak.
That's right. It's really impressive. I think that's a really good one. That is. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, I think the Master Shen is a fantastic guy. He's just amazing. He just doing martial arts, I think is fantastic. You'd be getting a call from you'd be getting a call from Dana White next for the call up to the Octagon.
Well, do you know what? He was Grandmaster Sken was brought up by monks. His dad was killed by gangsters in Thailand, and he has trained tens and tens of world champions. And I said, well, why haven't you been a world champion yourself? And he said, well, I was raised by the monks, and you don't need third-party verification to tell you that you're the best. if you know it inside, it's far more powerful.
Yes.
And you look at these people who they're almost like this bullshit bubble of a new currency, which is likes now on social media. I don't care if I actually do it, I just want the likes. And that's why I'm very careful now about saying this. I'm not actually going to say the challenge too publicly yet, because although the European champion is now apparently going to coach me as well, but I just don't want to do this for the likes up front. I want this to be a thing where everyone, let's hope I do it. I really hope I do it. And let's get more people. I've always wanted to climb Snowdonia, or I've always wanted to go on holiday on my own. Well, fine. We'll raise some money to go on holiday, whatever it is, but all the money goes to suicide prevention. Whatever it is, just set yourself something to get over this year and to look forward to something positive.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. Well, that was an interesting end to the conversation. That was fantastic. Kind of, you keep surprising me, but I don't know what's next around the corner.
A curate's egg, good and bad in places.
No, thank you very much for today's session. It's been very, very good. It's interesting for you to share your story and also explain about be vulnerable and explain to the audience about what you've been through. And I think everybody that's listening to this episode and can relate to the stories you're relating to. And I think it just shows that you just need to be brave and put it out there.
I've spoken to a lot of people who have had one big thing, whether it be paralysis or attempted murder, and I've said, look, I feel like a bit of an imposter syndrome because my story is just an amalgamation of lot. And they said, no, absolutely not. It doesn't matter if your goldfish died or your grandparents have gone. It's or whether you've had 5 or 6 innocuous things, whether you've got bad weather, COVID, redundancy, bad relations, and then it's the 5th or the 6th or the 7th that tips you over. It's all personal. It's all different and bespoke to each individual. So if you're going through stuff and you get this a bit of impending doom and it's all coming on top, just take a 10 count, put the snow globe down, relax and talk. It's never as bad as you think it is.
I think maybe there's an opportunity there with the snow globes. You could get Wellity branded snow globes.
You shake it and put it down and you can actually see everything settle.
There you go.
I'll make a note.
You heard me here first.
That's right, yeah.
The G&T Sessions podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the time today, Sam.
Thank you.
Great episode, and I wish you all the best with Wellity, and I'm sure it's going to be. We're going to see some big things coming out of the back of that, and have a fantastic year. Let's see it. Make sure that 2021 and our path to 2030 is even better than it was the last 10 years. Things can only get better, as that famous song goes.
It is, and I'd just like to thank you for your time as well and asking me to come on and share it. You just want to speak to as many people as possible. I love what you're doing. I love the mission. So it's great to be involved with you. So thank you very much as well.
It's an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Sam. That was Andrew Turner, founder and host of the G&T Sessions podcast, with Simon Scott Nelson, the founder of Wellity. And you bet. So in terms of actually getting hold of you and where to find you, and what's the best way to get hold of you and more about Wellity?
We'd love to hear from anyone who wants to get involved, and we want to grow the team, whether that's through ambassadors or employees. So it's the social media is Wellity, Wellity. The website is be-wellity, so be-wellity.com. And please just contact me on LinkedIn. It seems to be always on, whether it's in the background or but Simon Scott Nelson on LinkedIn, and follow Wellity. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thanks, Scott. Simon.
Thanks, Andrew. Bye.